Why don't you take that down? Give that back to the state, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
All rise for the jury, please. You may be seated.
Attorney Nye or Attorney Pervin Dunn?
That's all William Argie.
Thank you. Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide this court and jury shall be the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please be seated. And if you would state your full name for our court reporter.
My full name is William Allen Argie, Jr.
Thank you.
And Mr. Argie, is it okay to address you as Bill during your testimony?
It is, ma'am.
Bill, let's cut right to it. Did you murder your wife, Maureen Argie?
I did not, ma'am.
Bill, I want to talk with you about Wednesday, April 3rd, 2019. This is the day before Maureen's body was found by police. Were you working that day?
I was not.
And did your children have school that day?
They did.
And who picked them up from school?
I did.
And did you pick them up from school or from the after school, from the YMCA after school program?
I picked them up from the after-school YMCA program.
Okay. And about what time do you think you picked them up?
Approximately 4:30, 4:35.
And when you picked them up from school, did you go straight home or did you go someplace else?
No, we went to Let's Play Music as my daughter Ella had piano lessons that evening.
Okay. Did you bring both Gavin and Ella to piano lessons?
I did.
And where did you all go after Ella's piano lesson?
We went through the drive-through of McDonald's, and then after that, we went home.
And what did you do after you got home?
The kids usually are able to talk me into watching some cartoons or TV.
Okay.
So Gavin was able to do that. I addressed Ella if she had any homework, and I made sure, as she likes to embellish sometimes, that she doesn't, but she did not, so we were able to enjoy some TV time.
And was Maureen home when you all came home from McDonald's?
She was not.
What time do you remember Maureen coming home that night?
My wife came home approximately a little before 8 o'clock.
Great. And what time do Gavin and Ella go to bed usually?
It can fluctuate sometimes, but usually around 8.
And who usually puts the kids to bed?
Again, that can fluctuate sometimes, but usually Usually I do, because they usually like to have a story read. Not that Maureen doesn't do that, but on the nights that, when I do work, Maureen would do that, but they cherish the times when I'm there
Okay.
to read, so I did that evening.
Okay, so on that particular night, on April 3rd, you put the kids to bed?
I did.
Walk me through what bedtime routine looks like at your house.
Sometimes it's a struggle, but that night, Maureen did come home before they had gone to bed, so they were able to speak with Maureen and say their goodnights. They go and brush their teeth, go to the bathroom, put their pajamas on, and then usually they get piggyback rides from me to bring them upstairs, and then we bring them up. They each get to pick out one book, and then I would read that story to them.
And did Gavin and Ella share a room, or did they have their own bedrooms?
They share a room.
And so what time do you think you left Gavin and Ella to go to bed in their rooms that night?
If I had to guess, probably around 8:30.
So around 8:30, after putting the kids to bed, where did you go?
I went back downstairs.
Okay. And what did you do when you got downstairs?
Maureen was down there. I talked to her for a few minutes and asked how her day was. She had gone to my mother's that evening, asked how the meeting was there. I think it was a stressful conversation for both of us.
Did you know why she had been at your mother's that evening?
Yeah, I had found out a couple days before that when I had gone out with my mother for lunch, that Maureen was coming over to discuss potentially moving him.
She was discussing Maureen moving into your mother's house?
Correct.
So at that time, on April 3rd, did you know that Maureen was planning to divorce you?
I did.
Okay. How long had you known that?
The actual date she told me was March 25th.
Okay. When Maureen told you on March 25th that she had decided to ask for a divorce, were you surprised?
I was not.
And what was your overall reaction when she told you that news?
Inside, I was disappointed, but it was early in the morning. There really wasn't much time to really talk, as she still had to go to work. The kids were still in the house, and I needed to get them ready for the bus ride. I don't know if it's hard to say relieved, but I just said, okay.
Okay. Now, you said that initial conversation was March 25th.
Correct?
Had you and Maureen had a chance to discuss the divorce further between March 25th and April 3rd?
Yeah, there'd be intermittent times. Sometimes she would bring it up. Usually rare, usually I was the one. It was hard, as others has testified, and I very well know she's a very quiet person. And sometimes it's just hard to get information out of her.
Okay. Now, you heard testimony that in the days before April 3rd, Maureen and some family members had been packing up her belongings.
Yeah, she had, I think the weekend before, she had told me a few days before that Saturday that she was going to bring some stuff to Cindy's, her friend, and I said that might be a good idea. The morning of, she was going to use the family vehicle, the Marital, which didn't make sense to me as it's a SUV and a hatchback, where I had a pickup truck that had obviously some more room. So I convinced her to use the pickup truck, which at least made me feel a little better that it would be a little easier for her.
Okay.
I did offer to help her, but she wanted to do it on her own.
Okay. And at that time, before April 3rd, did you know that Maureen was planning to bring the children with her when she did leave the Londonderry home?
I didn't know, but there was possibly the possibility that she was trying to go that route.
Okay. Okay. During the state's case, you saw some text messages between yourself and your mother, Brenda, that were
Correct.
sent on April 3rd in the morning.
Correct.
And in those texts, you had mentioned that your mother was opening up her home to Maureen and your children.
Correct.
How did you feel about that?
Initially, I was a little upset. We had gone out to lunch. I don't know if it was the day before or 2 days before, and briefly had talked about it because that's when I believe she had told me that Maureen might be.
Objection, hearsay.
I can rephrase the question.
Okay, thank you.
You described yourself
Actually,
as...
while we're taking a evidentiary break, I'm wondering if we should, the podium was moved for a reason, if we could move it back where it was during the balance of this. That might make sense. Thank you. In between the tables is fine. Thank you. I say that just because I know Mr. Argie's been turning to face you to answer questions, and it might be more helpful if he's facing the jury more. Thank you.
So you described yourself as feeling a little bit upset that your mother was opening her home to Maureen. Were you hurt by that decision?
I was. I think any child might initially.
I want to go back to April 3rd. The text messages we were just discussing were from that morning. I want to go back to April 3rd after you put Gavin and Ella to bed. You said that you came back downstairs and you and Maureen started to talk. What was the tone of that conversation? What was the tone of that conversation?
There was a little tension.
A little bit of tension?
I think it was kind of, if I could describe it as, for both of us, it was like walking on eggshells.
And so generally, what was after you and Maureen spoke about your days, how things have been, what was the general topic?
I don't believe he testified as to that.
Well, it'll be for the jury to determine that.
When you came downstairs, what was the topic of conversation with Maureen generally?
It was about, we briefly talked about the divorce, and also we talked about the meeting that I had the night before at AFC.
Okay.
I was concerned about her, that when I got home from that meeting, it was well past the kids' bedtime. And the kids were still up. She was laying down on the couch. She was awake. I brought the kids to bed and talked to her and said, you know, there's a potential that it looks like could go to another location with AFC in the form of the new owner that was taking over the operations, although the current owners in AFC and Methuen and Andover were still staying as owners.
Okay. So you and Maureen discussed your work meeting from the night before.
Yep.
And you said you discussed the divorce a bit.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about that conversation, the conversation you and Maureen had about the divorce.
I think it started off talking about with regards to my mom and how I believe I asked if, you know, what exactly was going to happen, as that's the house I grew up in, so I know how many bedrooms there are. And my sister and niece were currently living there.
Okay.
So I kind of was concerned with how the living arrangements were going to be.
Okay.
They quite haven't figured that out, but that's how it started off. And then it turned more to saying that we loved each other. That we would always love each other, but that it just felt like we had grown apart. And it became emotional, tearful. I think after saying those terms of endearment and love, we held each other. And she said again that she always loves me, but it doesn't change the fact that I still want a divorce.
Okay. Fair to say, the initial tone of this conversation was sad. I think you described it as tearful.
Yeah,
Did the emotional tone of the conversation change at any point?
it did.
Okay. How
It did.
so?
I think at that point, up to this point, I didn't know by whom she was getting ideas or emotional help or suggestions from. If it's her family, then that's fine. I would hope so. I know that we did try therapy, and if I can use the phrase, I mean, that was a complete bust. Maureen was very quiet and non-instrumental in those meetings.
In therapy?
In therapy. So the tone, I think at that point, I felt like she was giving up too early
Giving up on the marriage?
on the marriage.
Okay.
At that point, there'd been a couple talks of some ideas that she wanted. We had talked about selling the house, and I was okay with that. We had talked, or she had said that she was going to try to sell the Marital. I didn't really have any comment for that at the time. you know, she had obviously talked about moving in, you know, that discussion with the, that evening with my mother. I think at that point, I looked at her and said, you have a plan, or it seems like you have a plan. But those plans, a lot of them determine on my authorization also. If we sell the house, we can put it on the market, but we both have to agree on the selling price. Selling of the Murano, she drove it. However, it was purchased by me and also registered to me. And I said, in order for that to be sold, that needs to be authorized by me. I said, as far as I'm concerned with regards to my mother, if my mother was staying, I would think that would be a good option, but my mother is not staying. You will be moving in with my sister and her daughter, which, and that sister was Karen Argie, which Karen has been the child that we have been concerned about. My mother has been caring for her for many years financially. She's been engaged twice, and the marriage never happened.
So were you uncomfortable with Maureen?
I was uncomfortable with the living arrangements with my sister Karen. That is something that I would have, if a divorce came, that I definitely would have had an objection to.
Okay.
And then I had known about some pictures taken of one of the places that I gambled at, of the parking lot that was on our joint computer. And I also had seen my mother come in at one time to look up on me, so I know that's something that Maureen obviously was. I told her that I valued the caring, but that she never verbally really directly addressed it with me. She always did indirect or to family members. So I said, so I'm sure you have evidence of my addiction. I took out my phone. I showed her pictures of 2 wine bottles from Saturday night. I said, what is that? I also questioned her about the second after the meeting where I can't confirm if she fell asleep or passed out while I'm trying to tell her that I might be able to financially help with things, divorce or not. I said, you want to go there, it looks like you have a drinking problem. So if we present this in front of a judge, gambling's an addiction. Alcohol is an addiction. I told her I highly doubt that a judge is going to hand 2 kids to an alcoholic.
So you told Maureen that in order to sell the house, she would need your authorization. In order to sell the car, she would need your authorization. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you told her that you didn't believe a judge would give her full custody of the children. Is that correct?
Correct.
After you said these things to Maureen, what happened next?
I think I was just annoyed with how things just went, and overwhelmed that I left the room, went downstairs to our finished basement, and was going to watch some TV, but I had realized actually the cellar door was open, as I had done some work on the back steps. So went out, forgot that I had left some equipment out there. Took care of that. I decided to take a walk after that.
Do you remember about what time it was that you left the basement door and went outside?
Sometime after 11 o'clock.
And how long were you out on your walk?
Walked around the block, I'd probably say 20 minutes max.
So after this 20-minute walk, did you come back home?
I did.
And which door did you use to go inside?
I used the cellar door as I had left it open.
So after coming in through the cellar door, where did you go inside the house?
Went back upstairs to the living room where Maureen and I were talking.
Okay. And was Maureen still there?
She was not.
Okay. Did you go upstairs to check on her or speak with her more?
I did, and I figured she went to bed. And for approximately a few years, I had been sleeping on the couch Not necessarily because of marital things, more because of I have sleeping difficulties from whether it be job-related, working nights, or so usually I would, instead of having to wake up Maureen, I usually just slept downstairs sometimes.
And so where did you sleep that night on April 3rd?
I slept on the couch.
Did you go upstairs to change clothes before you went to bed?
Unfortunately, a lot of people make fun of me, but I usually just, I had a warm-up suit on, so I usually just go to bed in my attire that I wear, so that's what I wore.
Okay. So I want to talk with you now about the following morning, April 4th. What time do you think you woke up that morning?
I woke up a little before 7 o'clock.
A little before 7. Were you the first one in the house to wake up?
I believe I was.
And was that typical or was that unusual?
It varied, but it's not unusual
Okay.
for that to happen.
Okay. And so when you woke up on the couch downstairs, where did you go?
I did my normal routine, went to the bathroom. Brushed my teeth, stuff like that. Then proceeded upstairs to kind of nudge the kids. They are definitely not morning people. They need encouraging. So the sooner you start that process. And wake them up. I went back downstairs to get things ready for the kids. I was not working that day, so I knew that I would be putting them on bus and getting lunches ready and stuff like that. So I started that process. Usually the cellar doors open. Initially I didn't notice that, but after I did, notice that it wasn't. And that's because usually Maureen might go down and work out. I just checked on it. And I must have left the light on the night before, so I went downstairs. I didn't hear the treadmill. We have a treadmill downstairs. I went down. Stairs and didn't see her. Looked in the pantry to make sure she hadn't already done her workout. She wasn't there. I said, okay, well, she just slept in, but, you know, it's starting to get late. She wasn't in the shower because I had already gone up to wake out the kids. So I went back upstairs and went back in to just nudge them real quick. They still weren't awake, even after trying to wake them up. Went into our, proceeded into our bedroom.
And I know this may be difficult, Bill, but what did you see when you went into your bedroom?
I saw my wife with a bed sheet around her neck. And jammed between her nightstand and the bed. And
how was her body positioned?
She was cocked to the right.
Was she lying down? Was she seated up?
She was kind of I don't know how to describe it. She was not in a full seating position. I believe that if the nightstand wasn't there, that she would have fell to the ground.
Okay. You said she was in between the bed and the nightstand?
Yes.
There was some empty space between the bed and the nightstand? And you said there was a sheet wrapped around her neck. Where was the other end of that sheet?
Wrapped around the post of our bed set.
Okay. And when you saw that, what did you do?
I went to her. I
You
went to her
over to
immediately.
Okay.
I shut our door. I picked her up. Took the sheet off her. I laid her down. Initially, I checked for her pulse. She didn't have a pulse. I gave her 2 rescue breaths as she wasn't breathing.
When you say you laid her down, where did you lay her?
On the bed.
And why did you do that? Why did you move Maureen's body from between the nightstand and the bed to on the bed?
I was afraid that if my kids ever saw that, they could never see that. That just was and I just held her and cried.
911?
No,
Why not?
Again, I knew Maureen was deceased at that time, and I was worried about the kids, seeing all this, and the potential of being in the medical field. I've had to call 911 for patients before, and the response is anybody and everybody. It's very much needed at times, and sometimes it's not, but they don't know. So they send everybody and anybody.
So you were worried about the kids seeing Maureen, is that right? You were also worried about them seeing police cars, ambulances, fire engines. Is that a yes?
Yes.
So what did you do next?
At that point, I did hear commotion in my kids' room.
Okay.
At that point, I knew that they were possibly getting up. So I walked out of the room and shut the door and attended to my kids.
You said you attended to your kids, and we know from video that they got onto the school bus that morning. Walk me through what it meant to attend to your kids, to get them ready to be put on the school bus.
So they get up, they do their routine. They pretty much know their routine. We have a sign on the bathroom wall that, kind of 1 through 10. When they get through number 10 and they eat their breakfast, then they're allowed to do whatever they want for free time. So I told them to do that, but prior to that, I told them to not to go into our bedroom, that mommy was sleeping.
Now, you saw that a note was found in Gavin's backpack that said that your mother, Brenda, would be picking the children up from school.
I did.
Did you write that note?
I did.
And had you told your mother that she was going to be picking the kids up from school that day?
I did not.
Was that was not already planned, that your mother would be picking them up?
It was not.
And so in that moment, why did you write that note and leave it in Gavin's bag?
I'm not really sure why I wrote that. I think being in shock, not really knowing what the next step that was going to be taken.
Okay. And about what time did you get Gavin and Ella onto the school bus?
That day I wouldn't be able to but normally it was, the school bus would come anywhere between 8:25 and 8:35. So it was probably around that time.
I do have quite a bit more direct. Would the court like to break for lunch now, or let me get
Sure,
to another chapter?
this is a fine time to break. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Argie, why don't you first take your seat back with your counsel? Thank you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's 1:15. If you could be back at 1:15, we'll resume the trial at that point. Thank you so much.
All rise.
Okay, everybody else set? Okay, thank you.